Happy New Year, everyone! So for this video, I'm going to be talking about this concept of force majeure. It's a concept that we all learned in law school. It basically means if something crazy happens, then you're not on the hook for the contract. So if I ask you to come paint my house on Saturday, but you can't leave your house because there's snow, there was a blizzard, and the roads are closed, well, that kind of gives you a valid reason to why you couldn't perform your end of the contract. So in entertainment, this kind of stuff happens a lot where, maybe there is a blizzard, maybe another weather event, and we can't continue production. So we need to slow down production. And what we often do is sometimes that means, we have to end production and terminate contracts, but often it kind of means we have to suspend contracts. And it says, hey, this was our schedule, but now something crazy, a blizzard or whatever happened, and I can't perform it, so hold on, I can't pay you until this event, whatever the force majeure event is, ends. So when I started my job in 2019, I kind of thought, all right, this is a general boilerplate thing. Sure, like what's going to happen? A blizzard in LA? But oh boy, I was proven wrong. In my 6 years, there have been two massive industry shutting down force majeure events. The first one was COVID, where, we weren't allowed to go outside and interact, and there was a whole social distancing thing. So, filming productions was not in the cards. And so a lot of our clients and a lot of, producers had to say, look, I know we were going to film this, but COVID's here. I didn't expect it, you didn't expect it, so we're going to have to pause. And so the way we draft force majeure provisions is, first of all, we explain, okay, what do we mean by force majeure? And that's actually been a lot of litigation, is sometimes something happens that should probably be considered force majeure, but it didn't exactly spell it out. So sometimes they'll say, let's say there's a war or epidemic, pandemic, weather event. And often, just to be safe, we list all these things out. There's been issues like where insurance won't cover something because, that was an armed conflict, but your provision says war, and those are different. So the way you phrase what a force majeure is can be pretty important. Often we say something catch-all, some catch-all provision that says, or anything else beyond the control of either party that affects the production. So that's the type of thing that would count as a force majeure event. And after COVID, we had to all make sure, does it say pandemic or something like that? And if it doesn't, well, now you can bet that we will make sure force majeure provisions refer to something like a pandemic, which it seems a lot more likely in this world than it did 6 years ago. Similarly, when we negotiate these things, we usually say, as a production side, we'll say, hey, if one of these events happens, we can shut down and we can stop paying you until it's over. Well, a talent lawyer, whose job is to represent the actors, they understand this concept. They know it has to be in there. But they do a few things to make sure that their clients are protected. So one thing they do is this idea of no selective suspension. Like you can't just say, okay, a blizzard happened, but your one actor is fired and everyone else can continue. That seems a little like picking and choosing. The idea is, look, we get you can't perform your end of the deal because something crazy's happened, but that doesn't mean you can pick and choose which deals you stick a part of. So that's a common thing you'll see. Now, as a studio lawyer, though, my response to the talent lawyer is, okay, well, that's reasonable, but some groups are different. So sure, if I'm suspending one actor, I should probably be suspending all the actors. But that doesn't necessarily mean I should be suspending the writers or the producers. Like, for example, in COVID, you could still write in your house, but you definitely couldn't act or perform a production. So I have to make sure that when we're saying, okay, I won't just suspend your one client, I'll suspend if I suspend everyone else, I got to be really careful on what that everyone else is. So I usually say something like, we won't suspend just your client unless we suspend similarly situated executive producers or writers or producers. So that's something that is a little granular but really important. Another thing that a talent lawyer might bring up is to say, well, you can't just indefinitely suspend someone, so there's usually a cap on how long it is. Now, we all used to think, if there's a pandemic or something, that's probably a couple of weeks. But then COVID lasted for years, so we decided, okay, we're going to have to increase maybe that cap. So a typical cap is around 6 months, and then after 6 months, you either have to say, hey, this isn't going to happen and just terminate the contract, or you end the suspension. We actually similarly do these concepts for rights agreements. So if we have an option for something for a year, we'll extend that if there's a force majeure event. So anyway, these are all little considerations to think about when you see a force majeure provision. If you're a producer, you definitely want to make sure one is in there and phrase as broadly as possible to give you some opportunity to, take a break and figure things out before the force majeure event ends. And then the second big force majeure event that we went through in the last few years was the WGA and SAG strikes. So coming out of that, those lasted for 9 months. People didn't think they would last that long. So that force majeure cap now often excludes things like labor disputes, because the idea is, yes, we won't keep suspending you forever for something like COVID, but if your guild is on strike, that's a little more within your control. Obviously, the guilds, decide things collectively. But that's the type of thing that now, after the 2023 strikes, as a studio lawyer, we got to be kind of careful as to, well, what if these disputes last for over 6 months and we've been capping things at 6 months? So these are the type of things that entertainment lawyers have to think about a lot. That's just one provision out of many, and maybe we'll get into a few more in another video.